So another good weekend out on the links on the golf course. The PGA Championship didn't disappoint necessarily. It was quite an absolute meltdown on those final nine, but really the final two holes for Pereira there, and then obviously it goes into the playoff. But that was wild. But the one thing that, and we can touch on that in a second. But the one thing, Mark, that I wanted to open this with was Will Brinson of CBS Sports said that he followed John Daly for 18 holes, and he goes, he gives us a list of everything that John Daly put into his body for the full 18 holes, and the list goes 21 cigarettes, 12 Diet Cokes, 6 packs of peanut M&Ms, and 0.0 ounces of water. Will Brinson writes this on Twitter. It was just absolutely hilarious.
I saw that.
And I mean, like, someone could read that and be like, wow, how true is that? I honestly think this is very accurate. Like, he was being pretty serious about it. I could very well see that this was the case. Like, 21 cigs is a lot, though. That's a lot of cigarettes.
I just love that it's like that moment in Animal House where the Dean Warner is reading the GPAs. And he goes, Mr. Blutarski. And then it cut to John Belushi in his face. And he's like, and he's got the things in his nose and he takes them out. And he goes, Mr. Blutarski, 0.0. And like his GPA, and that's like the water, 0.0. John Daly is a mythical creature. He's an incredible human being. John Daly is one of those people that, he is so fun to watch, so fun to like in the wild. He's one of those like all time. If you ever have an encounter with him, I'm sure just one of those like a Bill Murray type of encounter where you're like, what just happened? Just fantastic. And the fact that he is still honestly pretty competitive at some of these majors. Like, I mean, he almost made the cut. Like I think he did better than Scotty Scheffler, and who also missed the cut, who just won the Masters and everything goes into it. I have some golf rants, and but John Daly is just mythical. He's just mythical.
I don't understand how that man's alive, let alone still playing golf.
How's Keith Richards alive and still playing concerts? They're the same guy. They're like the same guy.
Defy any sort of understanding of how the universe works.
Medical science. Their bodies defy medical science. Can I just say this about golf? And this is my hottest take on golf. And I've had golf purists who follow me in my other show yelling at me because I went off on this big rant on Saturday. And here's my biggest problem with golf right now is golf right now is in an era that every other sport says they want to be in. Every sport, every commissioner, every sport always says, what do they want? They want parity. They want any team can win. Any team can win at any time. And right now, golf is at the point where any guy can basically win any major. Scotty Scheffler gets red hot, wins the Masters, walking away. That next major comes up, Duke can't even make the cut. So literally, like, we're in that era where you have multiple guys have, listen, Rory's got 4, but it's been almost a decade now since Rory was winning those 4. Brooks Koepka has 4, but again, now
he's the one we're closest to because there was that 2-year window where everyone feared him going into a tournament.
But even then, now it's been about 4 years, 3.5, 4 years, especially with COVID, that Brooks has been like, holy crap, it is peak powers. Spieth's got 3. But again, it seems like Spieth is it's a miracle if he makes a cut and is competitive because the yips in his head. And then you have a bunch of guys with 2, and now JT, credit to Justin Thomas for making it into that group of 2. Morikawa, Dustin Johnson, JT, who are in that group of 2, that you say, all right, maybe one of those guys. I firmly believe if you love golf and golf is your favorite sport, then you do love this era of golf. You really do, because you could turn on the TV and you're getting, guys, these young guys, Will Zalatoris, Scotty Scheffler, these young guys all have chances. John Rahm is fun to watch, and you never know when he could pop off. He was world number one for a long time. But again, I think personally, for the casual fan, and if the commissioners of the league and the people who actually look at the ratings and the money coming in, all of them would say parity is terrible. Like golf will make so much more money and be so much more talked about if Rory was going for major number 8 yesterday.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If Rory was,
you need the hero and the villain dynamic. Yeah. I mean, what Tiger did for sport was undeniable because everyone tuned in all the time. And they don't need to win all the time, but they need to always be in the mix.
Yes.
Give you that glimpse of
exactly
potential hope that they're going to win.
And the fact that Tiger is a lot like Tom Brady in that way, and LeBron James, I think they're very similar, and they're all in their own right, and especially in the eras they've kind of all dominated over the last 20 years, where you say, I hated Tiger when I was younger because you're like, dude, this guy just wins everything. But as you get older, you start to really appreciate how dominant he is and incredible. Same with LeBron. I hated LeBron for the first 10 years of his career. But then after 8 straight finals, you start to realize we're never going to see anything like this again. Same with Tom Brady. I was a Peyton Manning guy, Oreos and Papa John's pizza. And you hate Tom Brady and the New England East Coast Patriots. But now I love Tom Brady. Like, again, you realize we're never going to see anything like this again. Golf had 2 eras where they were undeniably crushing it in the ratings and in the popularity and in the casual people. Like I said to my co-host this morning, she's 10 years older than me, mama too, does not really watch golf, but she knows Tiger Woods. She knows Phil Mickelson. She knows Arnold Palmer. She knows Jack Nicklaus. But I said it was like Justin Thomas just won his 2nd major. She has no idea who he is. And I was like, what about Dustin Johnson? Dustin Johnson, who's married to Paulina, kind of celebrity, no idea who he is. And I'm like, but I said to her, I was like, if Justin Thomas wins 4 of the next 7 majors, and over the next, 2 years, I mentioned to him his name to you like multiple times. So like, okay, well then I'll start to know who he is. Like that, to get the average casual fan like enthralled with the sport, dynasties like Alabama and college football right now, the Patriots over the last 20 years, LeBron James, they are good for the sport. So I get it. Avid golf fans, you love the parody of it, but I will say that the parody era in golf right now is just not good for golf.
Yeah. Now I can absolutely see that argument. It's good and it's bad. It's good for the diehard fans in some respects, for the casual fans, as you mentioned, to get that draw. There's definitely some argument there to be had about needing 1 or 2 of those dominant players. And it's been fun to watch, obviously, over the past couple of years to see some of these guys, really come to form. And, like you mentioned, John Rahm, he's someone that's easy to root for and things like that. But no, I totally agree. Couldn't agree more on that front.
I think the final point, I didn't make my final point in that, was like the 2 eras where golf was really great was when they had Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and Gary Player, 3 guys who all won, I think, 9 majors or more, like going back and forth. They won every major, because then it was like you had your favorites and you just, you picked out of the 3, kind of like Roger, Nadal, and Djokovic.
I was just gonna say that. I mean, imagine what happens when those guys are, done.
Same exact thing. You turn it because they just win everything, and you pick your favorite. And eventually, Jack stood head and shoulders above the rest. And even Tiger had Phil a little bit, but Tiger also just won so much that it was overwhelming. And so you don't need necessarily just one alpha apex predator. It's great if you do, but having 2 or 3. I mean, if Brooks, Rory, and JT can win, if those 3 could go on a run where they win 5 of the next 8 majors, even just the 3 of them, like that's great for golf. Better than Will Zalatoris winning this one, the next time being another random 1-person winner. You know what I mean? Colin Morikawa going on a run and winning 3 of the next 4 would be great for golf. Like those type of things for the casual fan. That's the point. The final point I was trying to make.
Yeah. And even, to bring things back to football real quick, as we kind of springboard ourselves into the larger conversation of the day, football's, very similar to where even though amongst the parity, there have been those dynasties, and if they win a quarter of the time, they're considered, a dynasty and an absolute powerhouse. Tom Brady has been in the Super Bowl over half his career and won it, what, about 40% of his career, which is that, I mean, that's remarkable, but it's less than half. And yet still he's like the figure of, man, this guy never loses.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like the NFL is the sport of parity, and at the same time has been able to sustain some of the greatest dynasties
Yep.
and some of these players that, like, it's just it's interesting kind of how that works. For instance, Tiger can only win 4 tournaments all year of the 30, but if he wins the big 4,
It's all that
then
matter.
all of a sudden, it's like, oh my gosh,
It's the
it's
same
incredible.
thing. I mean, it's hard to compare individual sports and team sports in a lot of ways, but this is
It
one
is.
way you can compare it. I would say too, like, look at the NBA. I mean, the NBA, when it's had its dominant decades, when it was stole headlines, was Michael Jordan, the Bulls in the 90s, Magic and Larry in the 80s, Celtics, Lakers. Those are dynasties. And then LeBron versus Steph and the Warriors. I mean, that 5-year stretch. Some people got bored of it, but it was easy for the casual fans to get involved in. And yes, the diehards maybe got bored of it, but the ratings, the talk on a national level was never higher because everyone felt like they knew who was involved. You know the players. You don't have to relearn everything every year. We consume sports in such a way where it's easy for us to learn new people and
Right.
to get into it.
Because we know a lot more about
Yeah.
the players in the league to a deeper level,
And
down
golf,
to
like
backups.
tennis or like NASCAR. NASCAR is the same way. NASCAR in his peak years when it's like, oh, well, you had Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon all battling against Dale Earnhardt Jr. And I mean, like, you had these big names and now it's like finding the new stars and the Jimmy won 7, NASCAR championships in a like 11-year window. I mean, it was dominant. Jimmy Johnson was that guy, and it was who can knock off Jimmy Johnson. So it's the same type of thing. I just I think the people all say they want parity, but I do think if you talk to the heads of these leagues, they all get having either a giant villain or a giant hero is way better for their ratings and their coverage national.
No doubt. And we got to give a shout out to a loyal listener of the show, Mr. John Burton, who posed an idea for the show, and so that's what we're running with here today.
Yeah.
And that is kind of a draft look back at the 2018 NFL Draft. We've talked numerous times about how it takes a few seasons to really be able to grade and decipher how a draft panned out, especially the first round of a draft. So we're going to look back at 2018, the first round, and then some nuggets from the later rounds and kind of see what some teams were able to find in terms of gems in the later rounds. It's an interesting draft looking back on it. I haven't really spent too much time outside of, obviously, we always talk about quarterback draft classes, but to look at it beyond that, it was really interesting. So looking forward to that. That'll come up in just a few minutes. But I know, Mark, that we kind of wanted to address something that we alluded to last week, which was that the NFL was going to be meeting with Deshaun Watson and his camp. We obviously don't have a decision from the NFL yet. They're likely going to wait until at the very earliest, June, let alone probably could wait as late as July if they wanted to make a decision on whether or not a suspension's coming. But you had a good point of kind of how the current trial that's kind of being watched across the globe with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and how that kind of could spell, potential trouble for just the entire situation that Deshaun Watson finds himself in. So yeah, I'll kind of let you take the floor on how this could play out given what we're seeing right now.
Well, all of it to me starts with the fact that everyone in the world of sports. So, we're not ESPN. We're not, you and I aren't on, Fox Sports 1 and like,
as far as I know,
and millions of listeners having to give our opinion and they want our opinion. But when you do a sports show like I do on my Saturdays and we do here, and obviously with your coverage at your station as well, people ask you like, what would you do with Deshaun Watson? And for me, it comes down to so much about like, what do I want to be associated with? And if I'm putting myself in the shoes of the NFL, I am looking harshly at what's going on with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard right now, because basically that is what Deshaun Watson is going to have to go through 22 times. He will not serve jail. That's already been decided. We've noted that. But he has to face in court each one of these accusers in a basically he said, she said 22 times. And you're seeing what's coming out of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard stuff. Now, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard are two giant movie stars, have a national and a global reach. What Deshaun Watson will go through will not have the global reach as far as the TikToks and stuff you see be talked about in Europe and all that stuff. But at the sports level and the media coverage of it, it absolutely will be. You're already seeing what really made me start humming through and making this decision was Pro Football Talk. They already covered some of it just during the defamation trials, the depositions, before the first trial that he has with Ashley Solis, who was a physical trainer. And in this, they come out and say Deshaun Watson has already admitted under oath saying he sent text messages to her apologizing for her crying after one of their sessions, saying, quote, in the text message, sorry about you feeling uncomfortable. Never were the intentions. Let me know if you want to work together in the future. When the judge asked Watson under oath, again, this is all under oath, why he sent those text messages, Watson says, well, yes, because she was teary-eyed and I was trying to figure out what was going on. So I assumed that she was uncomfortable in whatever reason. And we talked about working in the future. And so I said, we can work in the future. Just let me know. And then I sent my apologies for whatever reason she was teary-eyed for. Like, I mean, we're all adults. We're not dumb. Why in God's green earth, unless she just got a text that like her dog got hit by a car,
right?
Or
or just like spontaneously burst into tears.
Yeah, her parents getting divorced. You know what I mean? Like, why would she be teary-eyed during a like? I mean, come on, we're not dumb. We're like, so again, Deshaun Watson will not serve jail time for any of this, but he will have to go through what Johnny Depp and Amber Heard are going through, actual trials of juries and people and weighing in on he said, she said, and evidence like this will spill out from every one of these accusers. So if I'm the NFL, just like the movie studios looking at Johnny Depp and Amber Heard saying, do I really want to cast Amber Heard? No matter what the trial comes to trial, they could both be found. Listen, no one's getting awarded anything. And that, to me, most likely what that is, if you've been following the trial, to me, it's very clear. These two people should not be together. They should have never been together. They both clearly can't handle relationships. They both have jealousy and drug problems, and or at least did at the time, alcohol problems. And neither one of them should probably date.
A lot of instability.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And with Deshaun Watson and this, I mean, it's clear that Deshaun Watson, in my opinion, from the 22 people and what we're already seeing is the dude was making some, at the bare minimum, he was alluding to and trying to get some things that only shady people do in those situations when they're alone with women in a room, at the bare minimum. And so the Cleveland Browns clearly are very comfortable with Deshaun Watson and all of that coming out and being laid on them. You're giving this guy $230 million and this, he said and did all this, because this is going to come out. They have text messages. They're going to have DMs. They're going to have all of this stuff on record. But if I'm the NFL, do I want Deshaun Watson game-winning drive against the Steelers in Week 8 on Monday Night Football, and then on Tuesday he's in court for accuser number 7 saying, oh, I was crying because I got this picture sent to me in this DM. Like, if I'm the NFL, I do not want to be in that business at all. And so if you ask me, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I would suspend Deshaun Watson for as long as the trials are going on. I would say until these trials are over, I do not want you associated with the National Football League. And the National Football League is the king. And Deshaun Watson didn't play last year. Did it hurt ratings? No. Did it matter overall to the NFL's product? Absolutely not. But Deshaun Watson playing and these things happening and coming out at the same time could absolutely hurt some ratings, and could absolutely hurt the image and the thing of the NFL. Now, if you want to say that's not fair to Deshaun, he's innocent till proven guilty, whatever, fine. You can say that, but it's also a free country, and this is them as a private business have the right to say, we don't want to be associated with X, Y, and Z headlines and everything that's going on. The Browns clearly want to be associated with it. They don't care. And to me, that says a lot about the Browns and their low self-esteem, and I've gone on that rant before. So if I was the NFL, I would suspend him as long as these trials were going on. And I would urge the trials to happen as quickly as possible, get through it, and say good luck to you. But as soon as these trials are done and you have a verdict on all 22 and you've paid out or won, I don't care if you've won every trial. It's not, we don't owe you to play in the National Football League. It's a privilege. We don't want to be associated with you while this is going on. That's what I would do if I was the league. And some people may say I'm crazy for that. But again, if I'm Roger Goodell, I act within the best interest of the Shield in protecting the Shield and protecting the brand. I think it's really bad branding to have Deshaun Watson possibly winning a game on a national stage, and the next day he's in a court in Houston dealing with, why did you send these lewd text messages to this trainer?
Yeah,
I just that's
and we've already heard that it's quite possible that none of the trials even begin until next March, which is somewhere. So, and as you mentioned, like the depositions have already begun. So this could be another almost full year before the trials even begin. And then it's 22 of them. Let's just say half end up being, full-blown legitimate trials where the others maybe get settled before that point or whatever comes of it. You're talking about double-digit trials beginning in, early spring, going then clearly into the off season and into the training camps and OTAs and all of that.
2023, 2024.
This could be a multi-season deal, and I totally agree with you. I mean, it'd be a bad look on the NFL at this point if he doesn't get, suspended for the year, for the season, and just for them to say, this needs to be resolved before you could play again. And let's not pretend like the owners wouldn't be in favor of this. All the owners want Cleveland
punish Cleveland
to reap the benefit or the consequences of a $230 million fully guaranteed deal that has reset the market against their well wishes. And obviously, even talking about the owners, Daniel Snyder now too seems to be very close to potentially being pushed out by the rest of the league's owners too.
About time.
It's finally about time. I mean, this has been something since the late 90s that many of the league and obviously a lot of the fans have been clamoring for. So there's a lot. It's a lot. And now that Cleveland has also screwed itself, and this is why I mentioned how it was the riskiest move they could possibly make.
Yeah.
Because if this doesn't pan out for them, they're totally screwed because they lost their quarterback that won them games and won a playoff game for them for the first time in 22 seasons. So, I mean, now you don't have Deshaun and you don't have Baker either. I mean, they do, but is it really going to work out to the point where he's playing games for them? I'm not so sure. So
it's just one of
really
those
tough situations.
It's just one of those things where, again, it comes down to, if you're sitting there yelling at us when you're listening to this, that innocent till proven guilty, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. But
that's
again,
true. That doesn't change any of this.
Take it from the perspective of the league. You have to think of the league. Do they want to be associated with this type of headlines for all of this time? And they've proven the NFL waits for no one. The NFL does not need Deshaun Watson at all. The NFL succeeded without Deshaun Watson last year pretty darn okay. We got a bunch of new quarterbacks coming in every year. All the quarterback movement. The NFL does not need Deshaun Watson. The Browns are going to fight tooth and nail to keep him. The Browns are a terrible organization that have made a terrible contract deal, in my opinion. And it will, I think it will set the Browns back for years to come. I believe that. And that's saying something because the Browns aren't exactly great. All I'm saying, from my opinion, if I was in charge of the league, I'd be very firm on this. I'd be very strong on this. If you are dealing with any sort of headlines that are going to be causing disruptions to the progress of the NFL that it's making with women, with all of the other sort of minority groups as well that they're trying to do, and just in general hurting the shield and the branding. Like I said, imagine, we're going to have to talk about it. Week 10, Deshaun Watson. The Browns are 9-1, and he just had a great drive to win it. But where's Deshaun Watson? Well, he's missing camp. He's missing practice today because he's in a Houston courtroom dealing with the fact that he sent this picture and this text to this trainer, and it's ruined her life, and she's seeking damages for it. Like, that is not the business I want to be in the NFL. I don't give a crap what Cleveland promised you in your contract, and I'm just going to I'd be very blatant with them and be like, listen, it's a privilege to play in the National Football League. And if you're innocent and you and you're basically saying, if Deshaun Watson saying, I'm innocent, I didn't do any of these things, and you're ruining my career, like, listen, pal, I'm sorry, but I'd rather ruin your one career than damage the brand of the league. Like, I hate to say it. Like, if I'm in charge of the NFL, that's the risk I'm willing to take with this. It is absolutely the risk I'm willing to take with this. And clearly, in my opinion, there is enough there that you're not exactly an innocent party in any of this. A lot like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Sure.
It may not be 100% what these women are claiming. Again, we don't know. Let's go to the trials and find out. But already from just the one deposition from the first pretrial, there's some pretty concerning things that are coming out that I don't necessarily want to be associated with. Cleveland apparently doesn't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Browns gonna Browns. And that's a good lead into to the 2018 draft. Speaking of the Browns and Baker Mayfield, he's obviously the headliner of this draft. So, we talked, obviously, you need a couple years to evaluate. We've had 4 full seasons. These first-round picks have gone through their 4-year rookie contracts, and some have gotten extended. Some have had their 5th-year options picked up. Some have had their 5th-year options declined. And then some of these players in the later rounds have, made their teams look really, really smart in finding some gems in the mid to late rounds. So let's get through it. Let's go 1 through 10 right now in the first round and give our thoughts on that. 1 overall, Baker Mayfield to the Cleveland Browns, of course. Number 2 was the New York Giants selecting Saquon Barkley. Sam Darnold goes at number 3 to the New York Jets. Denzel Ward, the corner, going to Cleveland at number 4. Denver comes in at number 5, gets Bradley Chubb. Quentin Nelson, already an All-Pro several times, the guard to Indianapolis. Buffalo gets Josh Allen. Roquan Smith to your Chicago Bears. Mike McGlinchey, the tackle, going to San Francisco. And Josh Rosen, quarterback, to Arizona as the top 10. How would you say these things worked out? Obviously, we've kind of stated our Baker Mayfield. It's not terrible. Yeah. Also, not what you want out of your number 1 overall pick. You hope they're the longtime franchise quarterback. Obviously, Browns didn't pick up his 5th-year option.
Listen, I've said it from day one. I thought it was a mistake to draft Baker Mayfield. Now, I'm on record saying they should have taken Sam Darnold. I thought Josh Allen, trying to think back to how I felt about Josh Allen 2018, I felt that he was that high ceiling guy, but I certainly wasn't standing for Josh Allen to go number 1 overall. So I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I did. But I think retroactively, we can all agree that Cleveland, New York, Cleveland, Denver, and Indy all made a mistake not drafting Josh Allen first. They all, like, as much as people like the Bears passed on Patrick Mahomes, it should be noted the Browns passed on Josh Allen twice. Both New York teams passed on Josh Allen. Denver, who's been quarterback starved, and Indy. Now, Indy, to be fair, still had Andrew Luck at this time. So to be fair, and they drafted Quentin Nelson, who's going to be a Hall of Famer. So, I'm not going to be too hard on Indy. But the Browns, the Jets, the Giants, and the Broncos should all get now that retroactive crap that the Bears get crap for not drafting Patrick Mahomes. They should get that for not drafting Josh Allen. If they redid this draft, he would be the surefire number 1 overall pick. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think it's even close. I think Lamar Jackson probably be number 2 overall. If you look at it, Quentin Nelson could certainly, you can make the case for 3 at that point in time. No other quarterback's really worth a first-round pick at all. Maybe Baker Mayfield, depending on your organization, where you're at the time, and how you feel like he could fit in your system. But I think it's absolutely worth the criticism that they didn't take Josh Allen. Josh Allen has been electric. Now it's funny if you look at the stats. Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield have played in 60 games for Baker, 61 for Josh. Josh Allen has thrown for 11 yards less than Baker Mayfield, but he's thrown for 10 more touchdowns and 10 less interceptions. And he's run the ball for 1,800 yards more than Baker Mayfield, and he's run for 26 more touchdowns than Baker Mayfield.
31 rushing touchdowns already for Josh Allen. That's wild.
Which is 10 more than Lamar Jackson, and he's only 600 yards less rushing than Lamar Jackson. So, and meanwhile, again, if you go to the touchdowns, he's thrown for more touchdowns. He's thrown for more interceptions. Lamar's only thrown 31 interceptions compared to Josh with 46, but he's asked to throw the ball a lot more. And Lamar Jackson has thrown for what? Almost how many yards less? Give or take about 600 yards less than Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield. So Josh Allen is by far, the most productive and star quarterback in this draft, and would be a surefire number one overall. If you went back in time.
Totally agree. And, at the time, I got to admit, I didn't think he was going to pan out very much. Just at Wyoming, I think he completed something like 51% of his passes. It just didn't seem like the accuracy was good enough. He had the arm strength. That was clear. But his athleticism was so much greater than I think anyone even knew. And then his accuracy kind of, he was able to put it all together at the NFL level. Of the top 10, you could say, every one of those picks to an extent has worked out except for Josh Rosen. Because Saquon, the talent is there. His rookie year was sensational. He's just had the injury bug. And, sometimes that's hard to – I guess we could say Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold would be the two that haven't really
Sam
worked
Darnold
out.
has not worked out.
Because Denzel Ward got his extension. He kind of, helped break the mold for corners. Really talented corner. Bradley Chubb is obviously – we know how good he is as a pass rusher. Quentin Nelson, all-pro. Roquan Smith's been great. He likely will get extended by Chicago, or he's going to get a big payday somewhere.
He should be. He's been a home run.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And then McGlinchey's been a solid tackle. He's
part of a great system there in San Francisco.
Yeah. The top 10 worked out pretty well. Sam Darnold already on team 2. Josh Rosen,
out of the league.
I think he's out of the league, right?
At this point, It's funny because the 2018 draft, when you start to look at it now, and I think history will say a lot about this, is where a lot of the NFL changed in the sense that Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are now what people are looking for at quarterback. The reason that Trey Lance got drafted 3rd overall and San Francisco traded all of their picks was because of Josh Allen. He was the measurables. You start to say to yourself, doesn't matter if you complete 50% of your passes. Are you tall, have a giant arm, and can run the football?
And will mold the quarterback into being the accurate.
And Josh Allen proved. But Josh Allen, I think the difference is what's going to make him special, and he's on the track to be a Hall of Famer, is that he has adapted so well to the culture of Buffalo and also just learning the game. Like Josh Allen now, if you throw the ball 35 times with him, you're like, okay. As a rookie, you're like, good God, never throw the ball more than 20 times with Josh Allen. But now you're like, no, Josh Allen, go win the game. A lot of that is his own mental development. So I would argue, but again, Josh Rosen this will be the last year and kind of the death of the pocket quarterback. Still, you kind of want to find the guy that's like a Josh Rosen, like a Matt Ryan, like a Jared Goff, pocket passer, 6'2", 6'3", really accurate, multiple year starter, and you immediately can be like, all right, let's grab that West Coast system, and we'll just throw the ball, dink and dunk, and accuracy will win us. It's been the death of that.
Yeah.
And Josh Rosen is a great example because he's a no.
Oh man!
What is that?
Got some tornado warnings, I guess.
Oh my God, South Carolina, come on and raise up. 3:50 on Monday, May 23rd. Dan Vasco's death alarm signed.
That's right. That's right.
Knock on wood. I'm going to knock on wood that you're going to be okay.
Always got to stay on our toes.
That was crazy. I thought it might have been me because I'm at the radio station and we do a lot of those. Near the National Weather Service. We have to broadcast all that stuff.
For sure.
But yeah, you can look back and interestingly say, the reason that we thought Malik Willis could go in the first round is because of Lamar Jackson. Everyone's like, oh, he's just an athlete. Go get an athlete and you can teach him to play quarterback. So Lamar and Josh are very much in this 2018 draft has set up the next kind of 5 to 6 years of what people are looking for at the quarterback position. And conversely, Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen are now are very much warnings of, don't go for the guy who's just the pure pocket passer and the death of the undersized, accurate guy. I mean, Sam Howell, if Baker Mayfield would have won a Super Bowl and got like Sam Howell would have been drafted higher. But because Baker Mayfield is kind of with him, Sam Howell goes in the 6th round. Like it's certainly a telltale cautionary sign. I will say, though, Saquon Barkley to me deserves a lot of criticism as well because of where he has been drafted. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
Because he went number 2 overall, I don't care. Like, the injuries be damned. Like, your number 2 overall has to be an all-pro. We're talking about Quentin Nelson, Roquan Smith, guys who are, as you mentioned, Denzel Ward, Josh Allen, guys who are earning first team, second team, third team, all pros, and you're building your franchises around them. Top 10 picks should be that. And so I do think Saquon Barkley deserves criticism because, again, where Gettleman drafted him.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, part of it is your draft stock, which you can't control, but it does factor into how we evaluate the pick itself. And obviously he's still young. He was 21 when he was drafted. But it's the same thing with Christian McCaffrey. It's like, you got to do it this year. Otherwise it's becoming a really problematic trend.
Well, your career's just kind of over.
The others here,
you know what I mean? At that running back spot, as we mentioned, if it's just not this year, your career's just over.
Yeah. You don't get enough chances anymore. If this was 30 years ago, you would get as many chances to make it work, especially with how talented they've proven to be. But nowadays, with the number of great running backs that you can find in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, et cetera, it's not something that the teams want to waste their time on when they could pay someone else for cheap at such a young age. Minkah Fitzpatrick is the first to go into the 2nd tier 10. I'd say that worked out pretty well. Even for Miami, he played very well for Miami. And obviously things are going well in Pittsburgh with him as one of the top free safeties. He should likely get a market setting deal sometime this offseason. So
I will say, but that's again, it's just one of those classic bad franchises, Jacksonville, Miami, teams that, hey, you draft a really good player. Why can't you keep a really good player? Like, keep your good players, and I get they got good value for him in return, but it's just one of those things, like, open door stuff for bad franchises is bad. I'll say I made a note, Vita Vea, 12th overall.
Look like
it was
coming over our area, is it?
Dan is currently talking with his incredible girlfriend. She's urging him to seek shelter.
Okay. Well, looks like I may only have like 25 minutes or so until this thing
hits. Do you got to seek shelter?
Until this thing comes through. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, wait. Sorry.
We got some time to get through the rest of this here.
I'll just say, I was saying Vita Vea. I mean, now retroactively, I mean, what a great pick for Tampa. He was instrumental in that Super Bowl. Again, you win a Super Bowl and you have a guy that you drafted in the first round really help you win that Super Bowl. He he was part of what destroyed that makeshift, Chiefs offensive line in that game. That lands to me. Anything else in the first round that you wanted to touch
Jair
on?
Alexander at 18 to Green Bay was obviously a phenomenal pick.
Yes.
Like we talk about certain teams like, the Patriots with offensive linemen, the Steelers with wide receivers. Green Bay drafts corners pretty well. I mean, they've done a good job in the secondary over the years. Jair Alexander was another good one. Dallas with Leighton Vander Esch. That's a tough one to gauge because he was so good early on. He had some injuries.
Yeah.
Kind of switched up his role as you weren't sure if they wanted him as like an edge rusher or more of like an interior linebacker. It seems like he's settling in again. And if he stays healthy, he could be one of those, Sean Lee types that sticks around for quite a while for them. Other than that, I mean, DJ Moore is a really good pick late in the first round.
I was gonna say wide receivers. It's funny because think about how many wide receivers have gone the last two drafts.
Right.
First round in 2018, you only had two. DJ Moore was the first in round one, and now is pick 24, followed closely by Calvin Ridley at 23. Both are, uber talented. Obviously, Calvin Ridley's going to miss this whole year, but he'll still have a really good career when he comes back. And then I was going to end with, Sony Michel. Bad pick for the Patriots. I know he helped them win a Super Bowl, but when you're getting a first round running back, it's just not something you do. And you look back and they didn't get much else out of him or even trade value for him eventually. And then funny, the Baltimore drafts Hayden Hurst in the first round before Lamar Jackson, and Hayden Hurst ends up down in Atlanta. Right. And then they find their real tight end, Mark Andrews, in the third round. What a steal in the third round.
And their all-pro left tackle, Orlando Brown.
And it's funny, the Ravens again just showing you how to draft. I mean, you get Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Orlando Brown. It really was a unique draft for them.
Well, and talk about some other players that would have gone top 10. Darius Leonard going in the second round to Indy here.
Absolutely.
And Nick Chubb to the Browns. I mean, for how bad maybe the Browns, we'd say, screwed up the number 1 overall pick when they should have taken Josh Allen. They hit a home run with getting Nick Chubb to start the second round, as well as their center, Austin Corbett.
Absolutely. Nick Chubb would be, in a redo of this draft, would be a first rounder. Absolutely. I also think that Christian Kirk, the wide receiver that went to Arizona, he would have moved up into the first round. I think he's the best of the wide receivers we talked about so far. You say still has
I would take DJ Moore, I think, as the best.
I think I have a feeling Christian Kirk's going to have a really big year. I have a feeling that when he gets to be the kind of the guy, and I think he'll handle that load well. It remains to be seen.
For sure.
But as far as other guys go, obviously, I think Mark Andrews would be a first-round pick. Baltimore got him in the third round.
Oh, easily. Absolutely. A home run pick right there.
I will say the other things I wanted to mention as far as the second round goes, classic Bears. Bears find Roquan Smith, and they absolutely should lock him up. He should be their linebacker of the future. He should be the next Bears linebacker that you talk about, Ring of Honor, Hall of Fame type stuff, the way his career's trajectory can continue to go. And then they get James Daniels in the second round, which, again, it just, again, drives me crazy. It reminds me of why the bleep did they not keep a guy like that? And Ryan Poles, he's got to own up to why he didn't keep a guy like that, because I think he's going to continue to go on and have a really solid career for your Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the Anthony Miller draft, draft pick in the second round. The Bears had 2 second rounders in 18 with Daniels and then Anthony Miller. Everyone is on you about, the Bears didn't draft a wide receiver in the second round. Well, the last time they drafted a wide receiver in the second round with Anthony Miller in 18, he flamed out. I mean, a solid player. He's in Pittsburgh. Maybe he can redeem himself a little bit, but you just never know. And then you look at some of the wide receivers taken, later in the third round. Michael Gallup is a third rounder for Dallas. And then I have a couple guys to be mentioned here who's now actually on the Bears. The Packers in the 5th round, last pick, they get Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And he's now a huge part of their offense. And then the Packers in the 6th round take Equiminius St. Brown, who Scantling and Brown have been instrumental.
And neither are on the team now because, MVS is in Kansas City. And I forget, did St. Brown, where did
he's
St.
in
Brown
Chicago.
go?
He's in Chicago.
Okay, that's right.
And so, again, the Packers in 5th and 6th round find these 2 wide receivers who now go on. Did you argue that, every Bears fan would rather have Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Equiminius St. Brown over Anthony Miller right now? Well, they were found in the 5th and 6th round. So, it's just one of those things where, or Michael Gallup for sure. You stomp on like, oh, you got to take a wide receiver in the 2nd round. Well, a lot like the running backs, it's finding the right guy at the right, and when he falls to at the right pick.
Yeah, not to mention, like in the 2nd and 3rd round, you're still looking for guys that are going to be, multi-year starters for you and productive athletes. Washington with Darius Geis in the 2nd round thought they were going to get their next, franchise running back. Guy played 5 career games.
Yeah, brutal.
And was out of the league instantly. Like he had some injuries that kept him out, but and now he's out of the league that quickly. I remember that was a guy that, everyone thought was going to break out sooner rather than later. Didn't pan out for them, and they spent an early 2nd round on him. And there's quite a few
Kansas
guys, in this draft class that's still stuck around. But like someone like Boston Scott, who was a 6th round pick to the Eagles, he's been productive. I think he scored like 7 touchdowns for them last year. There are some of these gems that could be found even in the 7th round, Mark. There were a couple names that jumped out to me in the late rounds here. Justin Jackson was almost Mr. Irrelevant, and he's been a very solid backup running back in LA with the Chargers, and has been quite productive and hung on to that role for now 4 seasons, where we know being a running back is a tough thing in the NFL. To be a 7th round running back and make it, that's pretty impressive. Yeah,
the Bears in the 5th round found Belial Nichols. I mean, he's a guy that is, played 60 games for them, 11 sacks, the defensive tackle position. Michael Dixon, the Seattle takes the punter in the 5th round. Well, he started 65 games for him.
Yeah.
Like, if that's what it takes, you know what I mean? Like you queeze when you're like, oh, my team took a punter in the 5th round. Well, if you just start 65 games for you, then you take a guy in the 5th round who's going to start. You know what I mean? There's a couple others. Siren Neal,
Quisenberry, the center interior line. He had like 1 or 2 years where he was the starter, but a really good backup. And for the 5th round, you'll take O-line depth at that pick for sure. Yeah, and then trust me, there's plenty of guys in the early rounds who don't pan out. Like I was going to say, Breeland Speaks, the Kansas City, the DN out of Mississippi. That dude, you start him, you think, oh, Kansas City, you need a DN. You get a guy in the 2nd round. That's great. Dude starts 16 games, records, 1.5 sacks. And he's out of the league. You know what I mean? Like, so you just never know. And like you mentioned with Darius Geis, that's why you do have to and it's cliche to say it, you do have to look back and say what happened to these guys. And I think it's crucial to remember when your team is looking in the 1st round, as much as I want to be really critical, you can look back and say how critical of Arizona Josh Rosen, they immediately fixed their mistake. Right.
Like the next year they draft Kyler Murray. And we're not hammering the Cardinals, are we? No, we're not at all. They didn't have a chance to take Josh Allen. He was taken before them. They took a guy and immediately realized he was not going to be the guy for them. And it's been rewarded by the fact that he couldn't land anywhere else, stick with any other team. And they went and got their guy. Now they got to figure out the contract with Kyler Murray. That's a whole nother issue. But Cleveland, it just goes to show you why it's frustrating. Again, I mean, harp on Cleveland with the Deshaun Watson thing. They could have drafted him the year before. They didn't. The next year, they pass on better options with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Now, historically, we know that. The guy who they should probably just have run with this year and started with Baker Mayfield, give him that 5th year. You're not paying him anyways. At least like with the Bears, hey, you got 4 years out of James Daniels as a starter, and it was good time. And now you're not paying him anything. Like the Steelers are now paying the big bucks for him. You're going to go back to the well and say, let's go back for cheap, hopefully high productive offensive linemen out of the draft.
And they'll get a comp pick, maybe as high as a 3rd-round comp pick for
Yeah,
them.
and for the Browns, it's the same thing. It's like it's just bad organizations making bad moves. You at least say now you pay all that guaranteed money to Deshaun Watson, and whereas you could have started Baker Mayfield this year and gone and got a guy in the draft next year. Like when you look back at drafts, it's a good reminder of maybe not to overpay in free agency, because you can always recorrect your mistake in next year's draft if you have draft capital.
Yeah, that's very true. And, we're even talking about the Cleveland Browns with the contract for Nick Chubb, who now is, signed through 2024. Are they going to be able to give him another contract to be that guy? Maybe not. I mean, I don't know. They'll be hard pressed to find room.
Yeah.
And it's a running back. You can find others, but he's certainly, one of the elites in the league. That's, you would want to pay for him. But yeah, with all of that money tied up, it's tough. But this was interesting. I liked looking back and kind of seeing where some teams could have gone better. But also where they went right, and we saw how dominant the Ravens were in this one. It was quite an impressive draft.
I will say, out of all of these players drafted, you start to look, who are the players that are on the trajectory towards a Hall of Fame career? To me, there's really only 4 I feel comfortable saying: Josh Allen, Quentin Nelson, Roquan Smith, and Darius Leonard. I mean, and now you may say it's a little biased, like how can you not maybe include Jair Alexander or Minkah Fitzpatrick?
And I would say maybe Minkah too.
But those guys with cornerback, it's so hard because we see how quickly they can fall off the face of the earth. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like they're okay. I'll argue those guys, those corners are on pace, but for corners to make it into a Hall of Fame corner, like it is much harder.
Well, Minkah's a free safety, so it is a little bit different. But yeah, like the Jair Alexander, Denzel Ward, really, really good. But they're going to have to be dominant for another 5 years.
It's easier for me to say Darius Leonard and Roquan Smith will continue this production for the next 4 to 5 years compared to those corners and safeties and free safeties. That is much harder for me to confidently say they could continue at that level of production. I feel confident saying Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen will continue at their level of production, putting them on the pace and as well as Quentin Nelson. So those would be the 5 that I would list. And then those corners of, those defensive backs, they're close, but we got to look back again in 5 years and feel out how the next part of their career goes.
For sure. Yeah, this was a fun look back. Thank you, John Burton, good coworker and friend of mine and friend of the show, for bringing this idea to us. And 2019 will be on the horizon. Then we'll be able to look back and see how the 2019 draft panned out.
And we always say we're interested in any idea. So if you got something that you want us to ponder about or go after, or you want to challenge us on a thought that we've had throughout the show, we love interacting through the Facebook page.
Hit us up. Check us out on YouTube as well. Facebook, Twitter, all the good stuff. That'll do it for us here on the Football Lounge with our 2018 Draft Look Back episode. See you guys all very soon. Have a great week.